Hey guys, today I would like to show you how to add a pop of color into your Mosaic Crochet projects. This is a wall hanging that I made and it was all black and white, and we just added one little pop of orange right here. This is very similar to doing a 3-color Mosaic Crochet, but instead of working the orange all the way across, we're just going to be working it in this small little section. So this technique is really helpful for when you have motifs that are separate. So like this kisses bag here, we have these individual kisses. This is another easy one to add a separate pop of color. But when you have a pattern like this is my Overlook pattern. This one you can see the red is in each of these here, so you're working like the whole row in orange and then switching to red. That's not what we're doing, but if you want to do a 3-color Mosaic Crochet, you should check out that video. I'll have the link in the description for that one. And the sample that we're going to be working with today is the Batty pattern. Now I'm not going to show you stitch by stitch how to do the Batty pattern, but I am going to use this as an example to show you how to switch the colors in one small section, so you can use this technique with whatever pattern that you have. And now that spooky season is coming up, I am super excited to add pops of color to a bunch of different projects that I've been working on. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I have a little sneak peek of the next pattern that's coming out. So let's head on into my studio and I'll show you how to add a pop of color. Alright, so let's add a pop of color to this swatch right here. As you can see, I added a white one down here, and we are going to do exactly this right up here. So starting at this point here is where we're going to add this white bat here. And really it depends on what pattern you're working with, but just as a reminder, if you've seen my 3-color Mosaic Crochet video before, that one shows you and explains that you need to start your color change the row below where you think you should be changing it. So for example, when you're looking at the Batty pattern, if you want these colors right here to be different, you're going to want to add stitches all the way down here in row 2. Those are going to have to be switched. So when you do these overlay DCs, you will be pulling the correct color up and you won't be pulling a different color, because that will show right at the very bottom there, and we don't want that. So whatever pattern you're working on, make sure that you're changing colors at row 2 and not at row 4 where it looks like you should be doing it. Anyway, with all that said, I am going to start this one right here. I am going to work all of these stitches in black because this corner bat is going to be in black. So we're going to start with black stitches all the way to right here. This is right at the middle where we want the bottom of the white bat to start. So for those 3 stitches, those are going to be switched to white, and I will show you when we get right over there how to do that. So when we want to switch colors, which will be in this next stitch right before we have these 3 white ones, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, just 1 loop, and we're going to stop right there, and we're going to cast on with our next color, so then when we pull through we will have the next color on our hook. And if you are a beginner with Mosaic Crochet, this is not what we typically do. We do not switch colors in the middle of a row, but this is a special technique, so we are going to make an exception. So however you like casting on is fine with me. The way I usually do it is just wrap around like this and just pull through a loop and tighten it. But however you like doing it is totally fine. We're just going to pull through this purple just like that. So now we have the black and the white together, and we are just going to finish the single crochet by pulling through the white through both loops, and that's it. And we can tighten this black one a little bit because it does get a little loose when you are changing colors. But yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do to cast on. We're going to have this color, and we are not cutting the white at all. We're going to leave it and work it back and forth for this whole section. Okay, so now we have it on our hook. We have this tail that we can crochet over, and we have this black that we want to continue on this side. So we're going to want to pull this over as well. So the black and the tail are on this side, and we're going to work the next 3 stitches in white, and this is single crochet stitches for row 2. So we are just going to add right here, and we're going to crochet over the tail and the black that we're carrying over to the other side. So we'll just add these 3 stitches right here. I don't like rushing through this because I really want to make sure that the black is not showing in the front and that the tail is actually in the front like that. So this is really hidden back here and you don't have anything peeking out through the front. And now we're done using the white just for this one section, but like I said, we are not going to cut it. We are going to leave it kind of floating back here. So when we want to switch for the next stitch, we are just going to continue using the white. We are not crocheting over anything anymore, so drop these back here. Insert your hook in the top of the next stitch, pull through 1 loop. So now we have 2 of the old color on our hook, and we're going to take the working yarn and fold it down in the back so we are holding it and we have some good tension here. So this is a lot easier to get onto your hook. So we're holding those back there nice and tight, and we can just pull through both loops to switch back to black. And now remember, we are going to leave the white, so this white, the working white, we'll get it out of the way. We're going to work with that one later. We can continue working over this tail though. Let's cover this entire tail with the black so we don't have to weave it in later. Now we are just going to continue working row 2, single crochet all the way across, and we are going to crochet over the tail just like that. Now we're just using the black to the end, and I'm just going to work this off camera all the way to the end, covering up this tail right here. All right, so this is where we're at with row 2. This is what it looks like when you're finished with the row. You'll have this long working yarn back here still attached. And what we want to do in order to get this to come out this way is we're going to pull this strand over here. So then when we are working row 3 in purple, the next time we have a single crochet stitch, we are going to crochet over it this way to kind of anchor it on this side. That way, when we start to use this color again, it will already be over here, and that makes it a whole lot easier for switching colors. I know I've been saying row 2, this is row 2. It's actually not row 2 because this is where we're starting to do the half bats. So technically this was actually row 10. These are all the single crochet stitches, and then that last stitch right here started the color change, and then doing the repeat were those 3 stitches. So in case you're actually following along with this pattern here, that's what I meant. I meant row 10. Anyway, you could also just follow the middle of the chart. It makes it a little easier once you're done doing the half bat. You can look at just the middle and then the other half bat there. It works either way. So anyway, now we are back to adding purple, and I am going to go ahead and add all of these stitches. We are going to stop when we have our first single crochet stitch, which will actually be the decrease with the single crochet above it for this particular pattern. But if you're using a different pattern, you can stop whenever you get to the first single crochet stitch after you're done with the right side of your chart. And that way we will start to crochet over it this way. So just real quick, this is the start of the half bat on the right side, and these are going to be all double crochet stitches up to this point. So I'm going to fill all of these in, and I will meet you over here. And now we're ready to add that decrease that ends with a single crochet stitch, and I'm just going to throw that in right here and show you that when you have the single crochet stitch that you can crochet over the white. So we're going to add that single crochet right back here for this particular pattern. So we are going to hold the white on this side and crochet over it like that. And make sure it's not super loose because you don't want to have all of these loops in the back. Make sure it's pretty straight across. But if you have a hard time with that, you can always just crochet over it, and then when you're done you can pull it a little bit to tighten it. But let's just add that one. We'll add the next stitch was a single as well, and then these 2 stitches were another decrease, so we're going to continue going over that one right there, finish our decrease stitch next to that. And now you can see that this is now further on this side, so then when we do the next row it will be already over here. So I'm just going to continue and finish this row to the end here, and I will meet you for the next row. Okay, now we are ready to start the next row, and before we do that we need to think about where we are going to change colors. When you look down here, we have these 3 stitches that were down here, but now we have the wings that are a lot further out here. And because we don't have any black stitches over here, we have all this room to do our color changes anywhere over here. But to keep it as easy as possible, I like to line it up right here, right under and right on top of these middle bats right here. So this is just kind of like a guide for you if you're doing this particular pattern or any other pattern. This is kind of a good spot to do your color change for each row. And when you're looking at a chart and trying to figure out where that is, then we have the half bat here. These are all the stitches where we could do the color change. So we are going to do it right down here in the middle. So after you work all these stitches, we're going to change colors here, and then this will be the special color bat there. In my 3-color mosaic crochet video, I showed you how to change colors immediately when you were done with it, and then work all of these stitches in the next color. But we don't have to do that because there is so much space here for hiding stitches, so we don't need to be concerned with it being super tight to the edge of this last one right there. So I am going to work the half bat all the way up to the top of this bat here, which would be halfway on the chart. Okay, now we are at the middle of the bat. We're going to do our color change in this stitch right here, and this part gets a little bit tricky because this will be kind of loose, but once we get it on this side it'll be so much easier. So we are going to insert our hook into the top loop. We are going to take the white yarn that we want to switch to, and we are going to gently pull through a loop. So now we have both of these on here, and we are going to finish our single crochet with the white. So yarn over, pull through both loops, and like I said, it feels really awkward. You can see even for me it's awkward. But all we need to do is tighten this black, not all the way, just enough for it to be a regular stitch. You see how much I tightened it? Just a little bit, not super tight, but just about the same as the tension of the other stitches that you were working. And then make sure that this isn't super tight. And now we are going to add our single crochet stitches over this floating yarn here, and don't forget, we need to actually crochet over the black as well because we got to use this black again on this side. So we're going to bring it with us. So we are crocheting over 2 strands, the floating white and the black that we will need for the other side right here. So the next stitch in the top loop will be over both of these. So add your single to anchor both of those, and we'll work through all of those stitches. Also make sure that the yarn that you are carrying to the other side, so the black, is in the back and not the front, because you don't want that peeking through any of the stitches. And now we don't need to worry about the white one anymore. That one's completely contained in here. And now we just add the rest of the stitches in the row. Any double crochet stitches, obviously you can't anchor I know there is a way to anchor it, but I don't think the stitches look very good and they puff out, and you don't want to do that. So we're just going to float this black one back here for any double crochet stitches that we're not anchoring. And now we're going to continue again anchoring the black stitch, the black yarn that we are going to be using for the half bat over here. And just like on the other side, we're going to continue with the white up until halfway through this bat here, and then we'll do the half bat in black. And now we are ready to switch back to black. We're halfway across the bat right here, so right in this middle stitch right here, we're going to stop crocheting over the black. We're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, pull through one loop of white, and now we're going to take this, the working yarn in white, and fold it back over the black. And once again, this makes it so there's a lot more tension and you can control it a whole lot easier, so the black isn't moving around a lot. And now we can switch to black by pulling through both loops. And now we're going to drop the white. We're not bringing the white to the end. We're going to leave it in the middle back here. So let's just continue adding stitches to the end of the row using just the black, and we are not crocheting over any tails or any other colors. And we'll just finish this to the end. Okay, that is what the end of row 12 looks like. So we have half bat here, both in black. And now every time we do a color change for the rest of the bat, so all across here, we will do color changes right in this section right here. And for this row, again, we're going to make sure we pull this all the way back over here, and we're going to crochet over the white with as many single crochet stitches that we have for that row. And any DCs or special stitches, we're just going to float it in the back. And as you can see, there really isn't much floating. There are some parts where there's like 5 stitches that we couldn't cover, or there's like 4. These were covered here. You could see any of this double crochet stitches, they don't end up getting anchored, and because this is a little loose, you can kind of see them a little bit better, but not super bad. So I'm going to go ahead and start this row and work the half bat to the end, and we will connect and crochet over the white when we get to it over there. So we don't have any single crochet stitches for a while. We have 9 DCs to work through, which is going to be past this part here, and that's perfectly fine. That just means the black will be hidden and you won't see the color change at all. So I'm gonna keep adding stitches without securing the white until we actually have a single crochet stitch in order to secure it. And the next stitch actually happens to be a decrease again, and that will be where we secure the yarn. So I'm going to start my decrease in the next 2 stitches. And then when you add that single crochet stitch right back there, make sure you are holding the yarn over so you are securing it and anchoring that one in place when you add that single crochet stitch. And after you have that first stitch in, it's a lot easier to pull it and straighten it, just like that. And we can just continue adding stitches. Any double crochet, the yarn will just float in the back, and any single crochet, you will anchor it like this. So the white will be secured. So the floating yarn will be secured for every single crochet stitch that you have for this row here. And I think I have 7 singles here, so 7 of these will have the yarn anchored, and then a DC won't be anchored, but then it's just 1 stitch floating in the back, so no big deal. The next one is a decrease that starts with a single, so we will anchor that first stitch, and the rest will be floating in the back. And now the rest of these were all DCs, and we don't really have a lot of yarn that we need to secure. This isn't going to be a huge loop back there, so we are good to go. I'm going to continue adding these stitches and finish up this row. So here's where we're at with this one. We have the white on this side of the bat, and I'm going to start the half bat on this side and stop about here. I'll show you again how to do a color change and a color change on this side too, just because practice makes perfect, and I want to make sure you guys know what you're doing when you attempt this on your own. So I'll just go ahead and add these stitches, and I'll see you right at this point right there. Okay, now we are ready to switch colors right in the middle here. And if you notice, the white is not where we need it to be. So just like we did from the bottom over here, we pulled the yarn over. That's exactly what we're going to do again for the white. So to start that, we are going to insert our hook into one loop. We are going to hold the white, and we are going to pull through a loop with the white, just like that. Again, this step is a little awkward because you don't have anything really holding it in place. You just have to do it very carefully. So when you have the two colors on your hook, finish the stitch by pulling through both with the white, and now make sure that this isn't loose here or too tight, and you can tighten the old color just a little bit, not super tight. Make sure it's about the same tension as the rest of the stitches you have here. And we are going to pull this over because we are going to need the black on this side. So your next stitch will crochet over the floating yarn, which is this white here, and the black that we're going to need for the other side. So we are crocheting over both. And these next few stitches are single crochet. Make sure the black is towards the back and the white is towards the front. And just work these stitches carefully. And once again, when you have special stitches or DCs, you're not anchoring anything, you're just going to let them float in the back. So I'm just going to continue adding the stitches for the white bat right here. And anytime you have a single crochet stitch, you're going to anchor the yarn that you're carrying across. And as you can see, the white yarn is we no longer are floating it across because it finished on this side here, so we're just working with the black, or just covering up the black, I should say. So I'm just going to continue working the stitches in this row, and again I will meet you over here where we will switch colors back to black right in the middle of this part right here. Okay, now we are ready to switch back to black, and before we do that, give this a little bit of a tug just so we don't have any loose loops back here, but you can see this is where we floated the black across, and because I did not pull it very tight, we have these little gappy loops here. But look how much cleaner that looks if you remember to hold it and pull it across. So pull this little black strand and it will take care of any of those little loops that might happen. Anyway, so now we are ready to switch back to black, and the way we do that is in the next stitch we are going to drop the black. We are no longer crocheting over it. Insert our hook into the next stitch, top loop, just like that. Pull through one white, so we have two white loops on our hook. We are going to fold the white down in the back over the black, so now that provides some tension. And then you can easily pull through a loop to switch to black. And now we are ready to just use the black for the rest of this row, and we can leave the white floating in the back. Well, not floating, just not crocheting over it. We'll leave it back there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this row. So here's what the end of that row looks like. This is what you should have here. And again, we are going to pull this over this side and crochet over it this way, and make sure that you keep the tension kind of straight, not too tight, not too loose. And then with the following row, we will switch colors and crochet over the floating part here and the color that we're going to be using on this side. So with all of that in mind, I am going to finish this bat off camera, and then I'll show you how to finish. So when you are done with the white, you can crochet over the final tail, and then it's done and gone. And at this point, I am done using the white for the bat. The next row, we won't need the white anymore, so we could cut it. But I think it's a lot easier if you don't cut it. You leave this part along here, because the next row that you do, we are going to do the purple, and we're going to secure it this way so you don't have to weave this in later. If you want to weave it in later and just cut this now, go right ahead and do that, but I just find it easier that if you can crochet over it and hide it back there, I find that a lot easier than taking out a needle and trying to weave in the tails later on. So that is what I'm going to do for this, and then we will be completely done with the bat. And here we are at the very end, and we are completely done with the color changing and the bat and everything. And I again pulled this side over and crocheted over it, so there won't be any tails to deal with. And now we can just cut it right where we crocheted over it. So let's take a look at the back. Now it looks a little wild back here, but you know what? Everything is in place. There's no loose strands. We do have some floating yarn here, but it's only a few stitches across, so I find it's not too bad. I did way better on this one than I did on this one, because I remembered to make sure you have a little bit of tension across and you don't have any loose gappy pieces there, but I think it came out pretty good. I'm going to actually continue and make this sample here a perfect square, because I am sending this to someone who is making a gigantic sweater for a skeleton, and I am all about that. So when I found out about that on Instagram, I was like, I have to take part in that. So this was a good little excuse to make a granny square and contribute to the greater good. And now that we know how to add a pop of color to our Mosaic Crochet projects, I have one that is a brand new pattern, and I think this would be so cool with a pop of color. So this is a brand new cat eye pattern that will be available in October for free. And then after October 31st, this will be a regular paid pattern. But I thought that would be a really fun thing if you know how to do a pop of color, to have a couple of these with random colored eyes. And so make sure you are subscribed to my channel and you like this video, because I'm going to show you exactly how to make this zipper pouch in my next video. So stay tuned for that, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Happy crocheting!